Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to perhaps the single biggest undertaking this channel has seen since the Kineticist Deep Dive. The only difference is I'm not doing all of this in one video. Seriously, if you haven't seen that guide, please go watch it. I spent hours upon hours recording and editing it, and I'm very proud of it. But today is the beginning of a huge series of videos, and this is not the first time I've done these videos. How you looking at me from 4 years ago?
Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to the first ever installment.
Great, nobody wants to look at that. I'm a lot more attractive these days. Welcome everybody to the Pathfinder Spellbook. We are going over every single spell in Pathfinder Second Edition in alphabetical order by rank, with the remaster having just hit the shelves a few months back, and with Player Core 2 on the way, sure to bring with it a whole plethora of remastered spells. Why not jump right in and start covering as many as we can? I'm sure I won't get lost and confused as more spells get added into ranks we've already covered in the past, but let's not worry about that. That's future me's problem. Me right now just wants to look at 20 cantrips in alphabetical order and go, haha, damage! But if this video ends up helping you out at all, please do leave a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel, and maybe send this video to a friend who is struggling to pick some spells for their caster in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You may notice that this video has come out on a Tuesday, and that is because we are committing to 5 videos a week going forward. Yes, yes. Please stop cheering. It's going to be very taxing. But I'm excited. I've got the new set. I'm in my new location. I'm ready to hunker down and knock these videos out. So, without further ado, I'd like to thank all the patrons over on the Nonat One's Patreon page. If you'd like to get your name on the list alongside all of these wonderful people, you can go to the description, click the link to the Patreon, and pledge $10 a month to help me keep the lights on, keep myself fed, and keep delivering you consistent Pathfinder content. So, now, without further ado, let's strap in, because we're starting with the cantrips, the most cast spells in Pathfinder 2e. Right now is a great time to go over my parameters for this list. I am using Archives of Nethys and sorting them by spell rank. What I will be skipping over in this list is all focus spells and focus cantrips. It would be really confusing to go over those here alongside in my class guides when I cover the classes and their focus spells, so any focus spells are going to be skipped. I'm also going to be skipping any of the Adventure Path specific spells. If I accidentally leave one in here, whatever, it's really hard to tell them apart sometimes, but usually on Nethys they'll say something like, this is from this adventure. So if it says that on Nethys, I'm probably going to skip it. I'm mainly just looking at official spells that have been released in mainline books, so typically if something has the uncommon trait, I probably won't be covering it unless I think it's worth adding in because it's something that someone else can use a lot of the time. So, with all the parameters out of the way, let's get started. And we are starting with a banger cantrip, potentially my favorite cantrip in the entire system, and it's right at the top of the list. We're talking about Approximate. Approximate is a very simple cantrip available to every single spellcaster in the game. All 4 traditions can cast it. And for 2 actions, you target one group of objects that fits within 1 cubic foot that is within 10 feet of you, and you approximate it. When casting this spell, you state exactly what item you are approximating in that 1 cubic foot area, and it will take the single largest digit, whether it's tens, hundreds, or thousands, and approximate it to the closest round number. The example that the spell gives is if there is a pile of 180 copper coins, then you can cast this cantrip and it will tell you there are roughly 200. If there is a pile of 573 hairs in 1 cubic feet, if you cast Approximate, it will tell you there are roughly 600 hairs in the pile. Additionally, you can actually state different parameters about what you're looking for. The example it gives is if you have a pile of coins in front of you, you can say approximately how many dented copper coins are in the pile. And maybe it'll be like a pile of 180, and let's say there's 35 dented copper coins among the 180. Well, you'll know there's about 40 dented copper coins This cantrip is almost entirely useless, but when it comes to flavor and the specific type of character who would love to have this a spell, I think this is such a roleplay useful cantrip, and it's great. On your super hyper smart mathematician wizard, I love this cantrip. And I love that everybody can cast it. Even a druid could cast Approximate. And it's a fantastic cantrip. It doesn't even scale or anything. It never gets any better or more specific. It's always just a rough approximation. Bullhorn, another one of my favorite cantrips, personally speaking, available to all spellcasting traditions except for Primal, which is ironic because it has an animal's name in the title. For 2 actions, you augment your voice for the next 10 minutes, and your voice can be clearly heard by any creature within 500 feet of yourself. And it's honestly really useful. Your voice can be heard clearly even through a din of other voices. If you're in a super crowded city and everybody's talking, you can cast Bullhorn and everybody will be able to hear you clearly over the din of everyone else talking, and it doesn't distort your voice or anything as if you were using an actual physical Bullhorn megahorn. And because if you sing louder, people will think you're good, as long as Bullhorn is active on you, you get +1 to coerce checks because your voice is loud and intimidating, and +1 to any performance check that has the auditory trait. Oh, and by the way, at character level 9, the distance increases to 1,200 feet, and at character level 13, you can be heard up to a mile away. If you're standing in like the center of a town or city, you can serenade the entire town at once. Wonderful. Caustic Blast is an offensive cantrip available only to Primal and Arcane casters. For 2 actions, you select a 5-foot burst within 30 feet. This is effectively going to target a 2x2 square, and everything within that square will need to make a basic reflex save. All creatures within that square take 1d8 damage. As usual with a basic, it's half on a success, none on a crit success, double on a crit failure, plus 1 persistent acid damage. Overall, a really useful cantrip. If you can get 2 or 3 enemies in a single blast with this, this is a level 1 cantrip that can deal 3d8 damage plus 3 persistent poison damage spread across 3 targets. That's fantastic early game economy. The downside is just how poorly this spell scales. It only increases by 1d8 damage every 2 spell ranks, so it's only dealing 1d8 to a target until character level 5. So it's not that great later in the game, but as an early level 1, 2, 3 cantrip, it's pretty good. And again, even at level 5, if you can get 3 targets all right next to each other, 6d8 flat damage is not bad. The persistent damage also goes up by 1, but persistent damage, unless it's going up by die sizes, really isn't worth all that much unless it's triggering a weakness, and even in that case, the difference of 1 to 2 damage will always be 1. Daze, a spell that was unfortunately very nerfed in the remaster, even though it wasn't super powerful in the original version of the game. This is available to Arcane and Divine casters. Also Occult, because I can't read. For 2 actions, you target 1 creature within 60 feet of you and they make a basic will save. On a failure, they take 1d6 mental damage, and if they critically fail, they're also stunned 1, losing 1 action on their following turn, which is pretty nice. The reason I say this got nerfed is because in original PF2, it just dealt damage equal to your spellcasting modifier, so if you had an 18 in your spellcasting mod, this would just always deal 4 damage every time you used it, whereas now, 50% of the time it's going to do equal to or more than that, or 50% of the time it's going to deal less. Especially with how poorly the scales, only going up by 1d6 every 2 spell ranks, it's hard to recommend this one. Imagine being a level 5 spellcaster, you spend 2 of your actions to cast Daze, they fail their saving throw, and you roll a 1 and a 2. You just spent most of your level 5 turn dealing 3 mental damage. It just doesn't feel great. But it is a cantrip that, in a rare case, can inflict stunned, which is hard to do without spending a resource, so I will give it that. If you like the idea of potentially very rarely stealing actions from your target, Daze is good at that. Deep Breath for Arcane and Primal casters. For 1 action, you take a deep breath. I suppose it does other stuff too. For the next 10 minutes, you can hold your breath, meaning you could swim underwater for 10 minutes on a cantrip, which is already incredible. The caveat here is you cannot speak or open your mouth while the spell is active, otherwise all that air will escape. Now, unlike normal holding your breath rules, if you get hit, you don't automatically open your mouth and expel it. So this cantrip is not interrupted by taking damage. Additionally, you do need to have a source of air when you first cast this spell. The spell itself does not create air, it just makes the air in your lungs last longer. So if you've got to swim a good distance, you can take a huge deep breath in and then dive and swim for 10 full minutes underwater. At character level 3, this increases to a 1 hour duration, and if you speak, you only lose 10 minutes of that duration, and once you are character level 7, you can last 8 hours on 1 breath of air, and you only lose 10 minutes every time you speak, meaning with a cantrip at character level 7, you can basically go underwater and hold a conversation with people. That's really, really nice. Ooh boy, Detect Magic, one of the weirdest cantrips that is everybody's first big hurdle when getting into Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The nice thing about Detect Magic is it's available to all spellcasters. Now, this is a weird cantrip, so let's go through this bit by bit. For 2 actions, you just emit a 30-foot emanation pulse detecting magic. The second you cast this spell, you just get a little ping that within 30 feet of you, there is magic. That is all it tells you at level 1. Now what's nice is you can choose to ignore magic you're already aware of. If your fighter has a +1 sword and your wizard has the shield cantrip active, you can ignore those 2 pieces of magic and send that emanation out. And if something pings, you know it's magic you're not actively aware of. But that is all the information you get at level 1. You don't get to know the type of magic, you don't get to know the source of the magic, you don't even know where in the 30-foot emanation the magic is actually coming from. Additionally, if the magic in question is an illusion, you only detect it if its rank is lower than your Detect Magic rank. Remember that cantrips automatically scale to your highest available spell rank, so if you're level 3 when you cast this, it is a 2nd level Detect Magic, meaning you can automatically detect level 1 illusions. Now at character level 5, Detect Magic gets a whole lot more useful because you get to know how strong the strongest source of magic in your area is, meaning you get to know what rank it is if it's a spell magical effect, or what normal character level it is if it is just a passive creature magic effect. So if a level 10 creature has just a passive enchantment on something without actually casting a spell, you would hear that it is a level 10 magical effect, which is about on par with a 5th rank spell. And finally, at character level 7, that's when the Detect Magic cantrip tells you exactly where the strongest source of magic is coming from. If you do sense that level 10 enchantment somewhere, once you are character level 7, you will zone in on exactly what is giving off that magical presence. I should clarify, you learn what 5-foot square it's coming from. But you know, if there's a longsword sitting in a single 5-foot square of the map and it pings as the strongest source of magic around you, you know exactly what's causing the magic. Detect Magic is interesting because it's not sustained, it doesn't last for a duration. It is just a single ping and you get the information each time you cast it. And it's only a 30-foot emanation, so unless you've got a way to make that bigger, like with Reach Spell or whatever, you have to keep casting this. Now, I am going to go out of order just this one time. You can quote that when I inevitably go out of order later, because I also want to talk about Read Aura while we're talking about Detect Magic, because these 2 spells go hand in hand. Read Aura is also a cantrip available to every single spellcaster in the game, however, this has a cast time of 1 minute. You target a single object within 30 feet of you, and after spending that full minute casting, you learn confirmed if the item is magical. And once you've cast this spell, you or anyone you inform about the results of the spell gain a +2 circumstance bonus to identifying the magic on the item. Now, just like Detect Magic, if the item has any illusion-based magic on it, you only detect it if it is lower level than the rank of your Read Aura. So same thing, if you are level 3 and casting this as a 2nd rank Read Aura, you could detect a 1st rank illusion spell on an object, but you could not detect a 2nd or higher rank illusion effect. At character level 5, you can target up to 10 objects at once with this, and at character level 11, you can cast it on any number of objects provided they're all within 30 feet of you, which is kind of cool. If there's ever a puzzle, here's a free one for you GMs out there, you can have, 50 different swords and only one of them is magical. Well, if you have a high enough level Read Aura, you can scan every sword at the same time and pinpoint exactly which one is magical. Or you can do it with like a key or a coin or something that they need to get farther into the dungeon. Detect Metal. It's literally the same as Detect Magic, but for metal. 2 actions. Any spellcaster can use it. 30-foot emanation pings any metal. If you know of metal, you can ignore it and it won't ping. Literally the same as Detect Magic. There's also a weirdly specific paragraph here. Just like Detect Magic and Read Aura, you can only counteract an illusion hiding a metal object if your Detect Metal rank is higher than the rank of the effect hiding the metal. But if... This gets weird. Stay with me. Detect Metal will always know if a metal object is being disguised as a non-metal object. You won't be able to see through the illusion, but if you see a club and detect metal on it, and the club has been magically hidden because it's technically a greatsword, you'll know that the object is actually metal. You won't know it's a greatsword because you can't see through the illusion if it's higher rank, but you will know that's not a wooden club. What this does not work on is metal objects disguised as other metal objects. If a greatsword is being disguised as a dagger, it'll still just ping as metal because the original object is metal. Effectively, even if something is being disguised by an illusion effect, if the original object is metal, it will always ping as metal. And once your character level 5, whenever it pings, you can learn exactly what kind of metal that is, which is super cool for something like a dwarf character who might know a lot about metals and ores, so that when you use Detect Metal, you can immediately know what a weapon is made of, what a piece of equipment is made of, all of that right with a single cantrip. And as long as you are a higher rank than the illusion you're trying to beat, you can learn the exact type of metal that an object being disguised is made of. If there is an adamantium longsword being disguised by an illusion effect as a rusty bronze dagger, it will ping as adamantium. Divine Lance, a cantrip that was super situational in the original version of Pathfinder 2e, but in the remaster has been given such a nice fresh coat of paint. This is a great offensive cantrip only available to Divine casters, and it is a 2-action attack roll against a creature within 60 feet of you. Nice and simple. On a hit, deal 2d4 spirit damage doubled on a critical hit. 2 damage die on a level 1 cantrip is great. That shoots your average damage way up. The average of 2d4 is 5 damage, compared to an average of a d8 is only 4.5. And that's it. As long as the creature you're fighting has a soul, you can deal damage to it with this cantrip. The only thing this cantrip doesn't work on are creatures lacking a soul like constructs. Divine Lance went from being slightly specific to universally applicable to most combat encounters. The only thing that can get in the way is it does have the Sanctified trait. If you are a holy cleric, Sanctified Holy, then this does gain the Holy trait, meaning yes, it does trigger the weakness of unholy creatures, but it is also less effective against holy creatures. I love the sanctification system. I think it added a whole layer of depth to the holy and unholy spells in this game, and Divine Lance is a great introduction to how it works. Draw Moisture, available to all spellcasters except the Occult tradition. At first glance, this might not seem that useful. For 2 actions, you target an object within 10 feet of you that can weigh up to 10 bulk, and you begin extracting water out of that object. You can extract up to 1 pint of water per cast, and it says that 1 pint will dry an object of around 1 bulk. So if the object does weigh 10 bulk, then let's say it's a giant drenched horse, which is probably more than 10 bulk. A very large drenched suit of leather armor made for a giant. Let's say that. Then you can cast this a number of times over and over to extract all the water out of that object. And what's really cool, as part of casting this spell, you collect that water into an orb in your hand. And if you have a receptacle like a bucket or a basin or something, you can move the water over to it and drop it in, or just let it splash on the ground. I think the coolest part of this spell, however, comes at the end. If you are in an especially humid environment, you can use Draw Moisture on the air itself to draw clean, drinkable water directly out of it. Though it does say that you can only do a few cups at a time before you pull most of the moisture out of the area. But if you use that a few times, walk another mile, use it again, this cantrip can keep your party completely hydrated in humid areas, which is just a really cool way to survive out in the wild. So my original plan with these videos was to cover 20 spells per episode, because then it would take about 50 weeks. But going off of how much I just love talking about this game and ideas and just puking words at you when I talk about these spells, I think we're going to have to limit it to 10, because I've already been recording for about half an hour now, meaning this is a 20 to 25 minute long video, just off of an assumption. So, that's where we're going to leave the first episode of the Pathfinder Spellbook. We have made it through most of the D spells, A through D, in cantrips. At this rate, we'll be done in about 2 years, not counting new spells coming out. So, if you want to see more of the Pathfinder Spellbook, please do let me know in the comments below, and by liking this video. All of that lets me know exactly how much you are enjoying it, how much more you want to see. I sincerely hope you're going to enjoy all the 5 videos coming out this week, and the 5 videos the next week. As long as I can keep it up, I am more than happy to bring you all of that content. So, thank you everyone so much for watching and subscribing to the channel. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.